After my dad begged me to visit for the holidays, I flew 6 hours to see them. He opened the door and said, "You'll watch your sister's kids while we're on a family trip." My dad practically begged me to come home for the holidays. After sitting through a 6-hour flight, I finally arrived, and as soon as he opened the door, the first thing out of his mouth was that I'd be babysitting my sister's kids while they went on a family trip. Then my sister laughed and joked, "Don't wipe your snot on the kids," and they all burst out laughing, until I hit them with my announcement that wiped those smiles clean off their faces. I need to get this story off my chest because what went down over the holidays still has me fuming. My family's always been a mess, but this time they pushed things way too far. Let me back up a bit. I'm the middle kid stuck between my older brother, Ryan, who's 32, and my younger sister, Brooke, who's 26. Growing up, it was obvious how things worked. Brooke was the golden child, Ryan was the dependable firstborn, and I was the designated scapegoat. Every family's got its dynamics, but ours took dysfunction to Olympic levels. Brooke could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. She was their baby, their little princess, the one who got everything she ever wanted without lifting a finger. When she wanted dance lessons, they enrolled her in the priciest studio around. When she turned 16 and wanted a car, they surprised her with a brand new Honda Civic. Even when she brought home mediocre grades, they acted like she'd just been accepted to Harvard. Meanwhile, I was hustling hard in school, working a part-time job at 14, and saving every dollar I could to buy my own beat-up used car. When I graduated as valedictorian, my parents didn't even bother showing up because Brooke had a dance recital that same weekend. And guess which one they chose to attend? The favoritism was so glaring that even relatives started calling them out. My grandma on my mom's side once told them flat out that they were being unfair, and my mom just waved her off saying, "You don't get it, Brooke's sensitive." That word became their eternal excuse. Brooke was too sensitive to be criticized, too sensitive to take responsibility, too sensitive for consequences of any kind. But somehow I was strong enough to handle being overlooked, blamed, and dismissed at every turn. When Brooke failed her first year of college and dropped out, my parents immediately paid for her to go to community college while living rent-free at home. But when I graduated from university with honors and a degree in engineering, they told me it was time to be independent, and kicked me out within 2 weeks. I packed my bags and moved clear across the country to Seattle for my first job. It was scary at first being so far away, but honestly it felt freeing. For the first time in my life, I wasn't walking on eggshells trying to avoid triggering another family meltdown. Over the years, I built a solid career in renewable energy. I worked for a small startup developing solar panel tech, and when a major corporation bought us out 3 years ago, my stock options paid off big time. I bought a beautiful condo downtown, started traveling to places I'd always dreamed of, and finally felt like I was living on my own terms. Meanwhile, Brooke stayed at home, hopping between half-baked jobs and business ventures that my parents kept bankrolling. She got married to a guy named Kyle 2 years ago. A decent enough guy, though his spine might as well have been made of Jell-O. Within half a year of their wedding, they'd moved back in with my parents because they were saving up for the future. That future quickly included 2 kids. Little Ella, now 18 months old, and baby Jack, who's just 6 months. Brooke somehow convinced everyone that motherhood was the hardest job on the planet. Even though my mom was basically the one raising both kids while Brooke spent her days shopping, getting her nails done, and posting Instagram selfies about her blessed mom life. Most of what I knew came from Facebook updates and the occasional guilt trip call from my mom, complaining that I never came home or called enough. Every phone conversation followed the same script. She'd ask how I was, I'd tell her something about work or travel, and she'd pivot right back to Brooke and the kids. The message was always the same. I was expected to drop everything and help out, just like I had when we were kids. Back then I was the one who did Brooke's homework, took the blame when she broke something, and gave up my stuff so she could have what she wanted. But I'd learned to say no. Distance made that easier, and therapy helped me see that I wasn't responsible for managing my family's chaos. Which brings me to Thanksgiving. 3 weeks before the holiday, my dad called me out of the blue. That was weird, he almost never called on his own. Usually any family communication went through my mom, with him occasionally chiming in to ask how work was going. "Hey kiddo," he said, using a nickname I hadn't heard in years. "How's my successful daughter doing?" That was red flag number 1. My parents never called me successful. They'd spent years downplaying my accomplishments like they were nothing compared to Brooke's everyday life events. I'm good, Dad. How about you? I said. Good, good, he replied. Listen, your mom and I have been talking and we really miss you. It's been almost 2 years since you've been home for the holidays. He wasn't wrong. I'd skipped the last 2 holiday seasons, choosing to volunteer at a shelter 1 year and travel to Costa Rica the next. Those were the most peaceful holidays I'd ever had. The kids are getting so big, he added. Ella's walking and talking, and little Jack's just the sweetest baby. They ask about their Aunt Megan all the time. Total lie. Ella barely knew who I was and Jack was still an infant, but I let it slide. Brooke and Kyle really want you to meet the kids properly, Dad said, his voice warm and persuasive. And your mom's been putting together this big Thanksgiving dinner. She's invited Uncle Dan, Aunt Marcy, the cousins, everyone. It would mean the world if you came. The guilt trip was obvious, but what threw me off was the emotion in his voice. He actually sounded like he missed me, like he truly wanted me there. I know it's a long trip, he went on, but we'll cover the flight. Think of it as an early Christmas gift. We just want the whole family together again for the holidays. That part floored me. My parents had never offered to pay for a trip home before. Normally they'd complain about how pricey flights were and sigh about how far away I lived, as if I'd moved across the country just to spite them. Please, Megan, Dad said softly. I know we haven't been great at staying in touch, but you're our daughter and we love you. Let us have one Thanksgiving with all our kids and grandkids together. I could feel myself wavering. As much as I hated to admit it, I missed the sense of family, the idea of belonging somewhere, of being wanted. And he sounded so sincere that for a second I believed him. Okay, I heard myself say. I'll come for Thanksgiving weekend. His voice lit up with relief. Really? That's wonderful, sweetheart. Your mom's going to be thrilled. Brooke will be over the moon. We sorted out the details and, true to his word, he sent me a first-class ticket for the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. I won't lie, it touched me. Maybe I thought they'd actually changed. Maybe becoming grandparents had softened them and given them some perspective about what really mattered. The flight from Seattle to Kansas City was smooth, and to my surprise I actually started feeling excited. I'd packed gifts for the kids and picked out a nice bottle of wine for dinner. I even found myself looking forward to seeing Brooke and finally spending time with Kyle. When the plane landed, I texted Dad to let him know I'd arrived and was grabbing my rental car. He replied right away. Can't wait to see you. Come straight to the house. The 45-minute drive to my childhood home felt strangely nostalgic. I caught myself thinking about how I wanted the weekend to go. How I'd stay positive, focus on the good, and not get sucked back into old family dynamics. When I finally pulled up, the house looked exactly like it had a decade ago. Same beige siding, same red front door, same scraggly bushes Dad always swore he'd trim next weekend. I grabbed my suitcase and the bag of gifts, took a deep breath and walked up to the porch. Before I could even knock, the door swung open. Dad stood there grinning from ear to ear. And for a split second it felt like being home again. There's our world traveler, he said, pulling me into a hug. How was the flight? It was great, Dad. Thanks again for the first-class ticket. You really didn't have to. Of course we did. Your family, he said with a proud smile. I followed him into the living room, where the sound of chatter and little voices filled the air. Mom appeared from the kitchen, drying her hands on a towel. Megan, she exclaimed, wrapping me in a quick hug. You look wonderful. How's Seattle treating you? Before I could answer, Brooke strolled in from the hallway carrying baby Jack. She looked exactly like her Instagram photos. Hair perfectly curled, full makeup, and an outfit that probably cost more than my entire closet. Well, 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 she said with a smirk. Look who finally decided to show up. Hey, Brooke, I said calmly, brushing off the jab. And this must be Jack. He's adorable. I leaned closer to see the baby, chubby cheeks, soft dark hair, totally precious. Brooke subtly shifted him away from me. Yeah, he's perfect. Not that you'd know, you've never come to visit. I'm here now, I said evenly. Where's Ella? I'd love to meet her too. She's napping, Kyle said as he walked in from the kitchen, smiling warmly. She'll be up soon. Thanks for coming all this way. He seemed genuinely kind, which honestly made me wonder how he ended up with Brooke. But I reminded myself, she could turn on the charm when she wanted something. We all sat down in the living room, and for a while the atmosphere was surprisingly pleasant. Dad asked about my job, Mom wanted to hear about my condo, and even Brooke was making an effort to act civil. Then Dad cleared his throat, and I instantly recognized the look that followed, the same one from when I was a kid, the I'm about to ask for a favor look. "So Megan," he started carefully, "we've got a little situation and we were hoping you could help us out." Here it comes, I thought. The real reason they wanted me home. What kind of situation? I asked, though I already had a pretty good guess. "Well, you know how hard Brooke and Kyle have been working with the kids and all," he began. "They really need a break." I glanced at Brooke, who was scrolling on her phone while Kyle jiggled the baby. She didn't exactly look overworked. "Your mom and I want to take them on a short family trip," Dad continued. "Just a few days, a chance for them to relax and reconnect as a couple." "That sounds nice," I said slowly. "Where are you headed?" "We found this great resort in Colorado," he said eagerly. "Skiing, spa treatments, the whole deal. We've already booked it." And there it was, the setup. "And the kids?" I asked. Dad beamed like he was sharing good news. "That's where you come in. We were hoping you could stay here and watch Ella and Jack while we're gone. Just 4 days, it'd mean so much to all of us." I blinked at him. "You want me to babysit while you all go on vacation?" "It's not babysitting," Mom jumped in quickly. "You're their aunt. It's quality time with your niece and nephew." 4 days of quality time with an 18-month-old and a 6-month-old? I repeated, staring at them. "By myself." "You'll be fine," Brooke said flatly, not even glancing up from her phone. "Ella's pretty easy and Jack mostly just sleeps. Mom's got everything written down, feeding times, naps, all that stuff." I just sat there stunned. They'd flown me all the way across the country under the guise of a warm family Thanksgiving. And it turned out they just wanted a free babysitter while they jetted off on a ski vacation I wasn't even invited to. "And when exactly is this vacation supposed to happen?" I asked, though I already dreaded the answer. "We leave Friday morning," Dad said cheerfully. "Perfect timing. You'll have Thanksgiving with us, and then you can have some nice bonding time with the kids." "And you didn't think to mention this when you invited me?" I said slowly. "We wanted it to be a surprise," Mom chimed in, smiling like that made it better. "We know how much you love children." That one actually made me laugh. I'd made it abundantly clear over the years that kids weren't my thing. "Look," Dad said, his tone shifting to that serious, guilt-laced version I knew too well. "We've spent a lot on this trip. The deposits are non-refundable, and Brooke and Kyle really need a break." "What about Ryan?" I asked. "Why can't he watch the kids?" "Ryan's got his own family," Mom said quickly. "And his kids are older. He's not comfortable with babies." That was nonsense. Ryan had 3 kids, he definitely handled babies before. I looked around the room. Dad wore that calm, reasonable look he used whenever he wanted me to say yes. Mom looked anxious but hopeful. Kyle seemed uneasy, clearly wanting no part of this, and Brooke was still glued to her phone like the whole thing didn't involve her. "I need to think about this," I said finally. "What's there to think about?" Brooke finally looked up, her expression bored. "You're single, you don't have kids, you work from home. It's not like you've got anything better to do." The casual cruelty in her voice hit me hard. It was the same tone she'd used our entire lives whenever she wanted something from me. "I do have a life, Brooke," I said sharply. "I made plans for my time off." She snorted. "What plans? Sitting alone in your condo? Come on, Megan. For once in your life, do something for your family instead of just yourself." That hit like a slap. I'd spent my entire childhood doing things for this family. Giving, covering, fixing, and my entire adulthood learning to stop. "I've always done things for this family," I said, my voice rising. "I did your homework in high school. I took the blame when you snuck out. I even gave you the money from my college fund so you could buy your wedding dress." "That was years ago," Brooke said dismissively. "I'm talking about now, about being there for your niece and nephew." "My niece and nephew I've known for maybe 10 minutes. I shot back. "That's your fault for living so far away," she said coolly. I could feel the familiar cycle starting up again, me defending myself, her playing the victim, and our parents stepping in to smooth things over by asking me to just keep the peace. But I wasn't that version of myself anymore. I need some air, I said, standing up. Megan, Dad said warningly, don't be dramatic. We're asking for a small favor. I turned to him. A small favor is picking up milk from the store. 4 days of solo childcare for 2 babies isn't a small favor. I walked outside trying to breathe. Sitting in my rental car, I stared at the dashboard, feeling my pulse pound in my ears. My phone buzzed. It was a text from my best friend, Jenna, back in Seattle. Asterisk, how's the family reunion going? Asterisk, I started typing, then deleted what I wrote. How could I even explain this mess? About 15 minutes later, Mom came outside. Honey, can we talk? I rolled down the window. What's there to talk about, Mom? I know this isn't what you expected, she said softly. But please try to understand, Brooke's been so overwhelmed. She cries all the time. She's exhausted. She and Kyle have been arguing. She really needs this break. Then why didn't you just ask me? I said. Why put on this whole show about wanting me home for Thanksgiving? Mom hesitated. Because we knew you'd say no if we asked directly. And we do want you here for Thanksgiving. Both things can be true. Sure, I said bitterly. But one thing is clearly more important than the other. That's not fair, Megan. We love you just as much as we love Brooke. The lie was so obvious I almost laughed. When's the last time you paid for Ryan to fly home? Or offered to watch his kids so he could take a vacation? That's different, she said quickly. Ryan lives closer. No, I said. It's different because I'm the one you use, and Brooke's the one you pamper. That's been the pattern our entire lives. She went quiet, then finally murmured, I'm sorry you feel that way. I don't feel that way, Mom. It is that way. And I'm done pretending otherwise. I started the car. Where are you going? She asked, panic creeping into her voice. I'm getting a hotel and deciding whether I even want to stay for Thanksgiving. Megan, please don't do this. Don't ruin the holiday over a misunderstanding. I'm not ruining anything, I said. I'm just refusing to be manipulated. I drove to the nearest hotel and checked in. The desk clerk gave me a sympathetic smile when I asked for a room, probably thinking I'd had a fight with a boyfriend or husband. Once I was inside, I called Jenna. That was fast, she said when she picked up. How bad was it? I told her everything, every word, every look. By the time I finished, she was speechless. They flew you home to be their free babysitter, she finally said. Apparently. And they didn't tell you until you got there? They wanted it to be a surprise. Jesus, Megan, she said. What are you going to do? I sighed, staring at the ceiling. I honestly don't know. Part of me wants to just fly home tomorrow and never talk to them again. But they're still my family. And the kids, they didn't do anything wrong. The kids might be innocent, Jenna said gently. But they're not your responsibility. You didn't choose to have them, Jenna had said. And she was right, of course. But the guilt still gnawed at me. What if Brooke really was struggling? What if she genuinely needed help, and I was just being selfish? Then I thought about all the times I'd needed help and gotten none. Like when I was working 3 jobs just to stay in school. When I had surgery last year and spent a week recovering alone in my condo. When I got food poisoning on a work trip and ended up in a Denver hospital. And not a single family member even called to check in. That guilt started to feel a lot less justified. I ordered room service, sat on the bed, and thought about everything until I finally drifted off. By morning, my mind was made up. Around 10 on Thanksgiving morning, I drove back to the house. The smell of turkey filled the air, and I could hear Ella giggling somewhere in the backyard. Dad opened the door, his face full of relief. Megan, thank goodness. We were worried. I'm fine, Dad. I just needed some space to think, I said. And I've made my decision about the babysitting situation. His face brightened instantly. That's great. I knew you'd come through. Your mom already has everything ready, feeding charts, nap schedules, emergency numbers. Dad. I cut in. I'm not doing it. His smile froze. What do you mean? I mean, I'm not staying to watch the kids while you go on vacation. I'll be here for Thanksgiving dinner today, but I'm flying back to Seattle tomorrow. But Megan, we've already paid for everything, the resort, the flights. We can't just cancel. Then maybe you should have thought about that before assuming I'd agree, I said flatly. Brooke appeared in the hallway, holding Ella on her hip. What's going on? Your sister's being unreasonable, Dad said. She won't watch the kids. Brooke's face shifted from confusion to fury in seconds. Are you serious right now? We flew you here. We're paying for your hotel. You're not paying for my hotel, I am, I said. Whatever, she snapped. The point is, we need you to do this. It's 4 days, Megan. 4 days out of your precious, important life. 4 days that no one even asked me about, I shot back. You all just assumed I'd drop everything again. Because that's what family does. Brooke shouted and Ella started crying in her arms. God, Megan, could you be any more selfish? I haven't had a break in months. I'm exhausted. I'm drowning. And instead of helping, you're pitching a fit because we didn't ask nicely enough. I'm not pitching a fit, I said evenly. I'm setting a boundary. Same thing, she muttered. Mom appeared from the kitchen looking flustered. What's all this yelling about? Megan's ruining Thanksgiving, Brooke said immediately. She won't watch the kids, so now we can't go on our vacation. Oh, Megan, Mom sighed, her face falling into that familiar disappointed look. Why are you being so difficult? And there it was, the script I'd known my whole life. Me as the problem, the ungrateful one, the one who ruined everything. Only this time I wasn't playing along. I'm going for a walk, I said calmly. When I get back, I'd like to sit down and have Thanksgiving dinner like a normal family. If that's too hard, I'll just leave for the airport instead. I walked out before anyone could answer. For an hour I wandered through my old neighborhood, memories flooding back. Years of Thanksgivings where I'd done all the work while Brooke got all the praise. The year I helped Mom cook everything while she lounged on the couch. The year I carved the turkey because Dad was busy helping her with the last-minute school project. The year I made pumpkin pie from scratch because it was her favorite, and she pouted when she saw store-bought ones. By the time I got back, the driveway was full. Uncle Dan and Aunt Marcy had arrived with their kids, and Ryan was there too with his family. The house was buzzing with laughter, clinking dishes, and the smell of stuffing and gravy. There she is, Uncle Dan said when he saw me. The big-shot engineer saving the planet. Something like that, I said, smiling as he pulled me into a hug. We're so proud of you, sweetheart, Aunt Marcy added warmly. It takes guts to start over so far from home and build such a successful life. For once it felt good to be seen, not as a problem to fix, but as someone who'd actually done something worth acknowledging. Dinner turned out surprisingly nice. I sat between Ryan's oldest daughter and Uncle Dan, and we talked about work, travel, books, normal easy topics. Brooke sat at the other end of the table, and we managed to avoid each other. Afterward, while the adults sipped coffee and the kids ran around, Dad asked if we could talk privately. Megan, he said, his voice quieter than usual, I want to apologize for how we handled all this. That took me by surprise. Dad almost never apologized. Your mom and I talked it over, he continued. And you're right. We should have been upfront about what we were asking. We should have given you a choice. Thank you, I said softly. That means a lot. He nodded, then hesitated. But I do hope you'll reconsider. Brooke really is struggling, and we thought this trip might help her and Kyle reconnect. Dad, I said gently, I'm not responsible for fixing Brooke's life. I never have been, no matter how much you and Mom tried to make me believe I was. That's not true, Megan. We never. Stop, I said, holding up a hand. We both know it's true. Ever since we were kids, I was the one expected to give, to help, to make sacrifices just to keep the peace. And I did it because I wanted your approval. But I'm done living that way. I'm not a kid anymore. And I'm not here to carry everyone else's problems. Dad looked down, visibly uncomfortable. We love you both equally. You love us both, I said quietly. But not equally. And that's okay. Parents have favorites. But don't insult me by pretending it's not true. Just don't ask me to keep pretending, or to keep sacrificing myself to make up for it. Before he could answer, Brooke walked into the doorway, arms crossed. Are you still trying to convince her? She snapped at Dad. Just forget it. She's made it clear that her comfort means more than helping her family. Brooke, Dad warned, but she ignored him, her voice rising. No, Dad, let me say this. Megan, I get that you're successful and busy and oh so important, but these are your niece and nephew. They're innocent kids who deserve an aunt who actually cares about them. Brooke snapped. I do care about them, I said quietly. Really? Because you've seen Ella all of 2 times in her entire life. You've never sent a birthday card, never called to check on us, never shown the slightest interest in being part of their lives. I live 3,000 miles away, Brooke, I said, keeping my tone even. And every time I've tried to visit or call, it's turned into some kind of drama, usually involving you. And somehow I'm the one expected to drop everything to fix it. That's not true, she shot back. It is true. Remember Christmas 2 years ago? I'd been home for maybe 3 hours before Mom asked me to run to the store because you decided you didn't like the dessert she made. Or when I called to congratulate you on your wedding. Her face flushed crimson. You know what, Megan? You're abandoning your family. I'm not abandoning anyone, I said firmly. I'm just done being the family doormat. You know what? She said, her voice rising. You're pathetic. You're 30 years old, living alone in some city where you don't even have real friends. You've never been married, you'll probably never have kids, and the only thing you've got to show for your life is that job you think makes you better than the rest of us. The room went deathly quiet. I could hear Uncle Dan and Ryan stop talking in the next room. And you know what else? Brooke continued, her voice trembling with anger. Nobody even wants you here. Mom and Dad only invited you because they felt sorry for you. The only reason I asked you to watch the kids was because I figured since you don't have a life of your own, you could at least make yourself useful to people who actually matter. For a moment I couldn't breathe. It wasn't the words themselves, it was the venom behind them. That was how she really saw me. But instead of crying I felt something else. Absolute clarity. Thank you, Brooke, I said evenly. She blinked. What? Thank you for finally being honest about how you feel about me. It makes what I'm about to say a lot easier. I walked over to my purse, pulled out an envelope and held it up. I actually came here with a surprise for the family, I said. I wasn't planning to share it until tomorrow, but now feels like the perfect time. Dad looked confused. Mom appeared in the doorway, probably drawn by the shouting. Ryan and Uncle Dan stepped in from the living room. What kind of surprise? Mom asked cautiously. I opened the envelope and pulled out a document. I've been looking for ways to give back to the community, I said. So I've decided to start a scholarship fund for students studying renewable energy engineering. I'm donating $500,000 to establish it. A collective gasp rippled through the room. Uncle Dan gave a low whistle. Ryan looked stunned. I glanced straight at Brooke. And I'm also setting up trust funds for Ella and Jack, $50,000 each, for their education when they turn 18. Brooke's mouth fell open. You're what? I'm creating college funds for your kids, I said calmly. Because despite what you just accused me of, I do care about them. I want them to have choices and opportunities when they grow up. The room fell silent. But, I continued, there are conditions. The money can only be used for education, college, trade school, whatever they choose. And if, at any point before they turn 18, you or anyone else in this family tries to manipulate me, guilt-trip me, or treat me the way you have today, that money will go to charity instead. Megan, Dad began, but I raised a hand. I'm not finished. I looked around the room, meeting each of their eyes. I love you all, I really do. But I'm done being the scapegoat. I'm done being the one expected to bend, to fix, to sacrifice. I'm done pretending I'm less important just to keep the peace. I slipped the document back into the envelope. You asked why I've never gotten married or had kids, Brooke? It's because I spent so much of my life trying to earn love from people who decided a long time ago that I wasn't worth it. I poured everything I had into my career because it was the only place where my hard work actually meant something. Brooke was crying now, but I couldn't tell if it was guilt or embarrassment. But I'm not pathetic and I'm not lonely, I said. I have a good life, real friends, meaningful work, stability I built myself. And I don't need this family's approval anymore. I picked up my purse and headed toward the front door. Where are you going? Mom asked softly. Back to Seattle, I said. My flight's tomorrow, but I think it's better if I leave tonight. Megan, wait, Dad said, taking a step toward me. Let's talk about this. We can fix it. There's nothing to fix, I said. You've all made yourselves clear, especially Brooke. I glanced at her. For what it's worth, I do hope you get the help you need. And I hope someday Ella and Jack understand why their college funds came with conditions. Don't leave like this, Mom pleaded. It's Thanksgiving. It is, I said quietly. And I'm thankful that I finally respect myself enough to walk away from people who don't value me. I picked up my suitcase. It was still packed from the night before. The trust paperwork will be mailed next week. My lawyer will handle everything. And just so we're clear, I won't be coming home for another holiday until I get genuine apologies from everyone in this room. Megan, Ryan said, speaking up for the first time. I think you're overreacting. I turned to him. Really? When's the last time Mom and Dad asked you to cancel your plans to watch someone else's kids? When's the last time they tricked you into flying across the country under false pretenses? He didn't answer. That's what I thought. I walked out, my footsteps echoing on the porch. From the driveway, I glanced back through the window. My whole family was standing there, silent, stunned, and for the first time in my life unsure of what to say. As I pulled out of the driveway, my phone started lighting up with calls and messages. I didn't even look at the screen. I just turned it off and kept driving straight to the airport. Once there, I managed to switch my ticket to a red-eye flight leaving just after midnight. I spent the 5 hours before boarding sitting at an airport bar, replaying everything that had just happened. For the first time in my entire adult life, I'd stood my ground. I hadn't tried to smooth things over, or apologize for something I didn't do, or twist myself into knots trying to make everyone else comfortable. I just told the truth and walked away. It should have felt like freedom, and in a way it did, but mostly I felt this deep, quiet sadness. Sad that it had come to this. Sad that my family's love always came with strings attached. Sad that I'd wasted so many years trying to earn something that was never going to be freely given. But underneath the sadness was something different, peace. For once I'd chosen myself. I wasn't the fixer, the scapegoat, or the reliable middle child. I was just me, and that felt surprisingly good. The flight back to Seattle was silent. I spent most of it staring out the window, watching the glow of sleeping cities drift by below. When I finally got home, I took a cab to my condo and sat on the balcony, watching the sunrise stretch over the skyline. My phone showed 47 missed calls and 23 texts. I deleted them all without reading a single one. Over the next few days, the calls kept coming. I blocked my parents' and Brooke's numbers but left Ryan's open, just in case there was ever a real emergency. About a week later, he texted. Mom and Dad canceled their Colorado trip. Brooke's been crying for days. Maybe you should call them. I replied simply. I told them my conditions for staying in touch. The ball's in their court. He never responded. 3 weeks later, my lawyer called. The trust fund paperwork had been signed and sent back, along with a short handwritten note from my mom. We're sorry. We love you. Please call when you're ready. It wasn't much, but it was a start. I'm not ready to call yet. Maybe someday I will be. But right now I'm focused on my own life, my own peace, and the happiness I spent years denying myself. And honestly, feels damn good to finally put myself first. If you made it to the end of this story and it hit you even a little, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube this one deserves to blow up.